Okay, welcome to another live episode of geekoutdoors.com. Making sure everything is working right now, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So let me make sure that's working. Yep, so that's on. Let's go ahead and pop out the chat, right? It's on the top. Okay, so looks like we got all of that set up, and let me see if the audio is working. Make sure. Okay, good. All right, so quick checks are done. So let's go ahead and talk about the subjects of today's news. The very first thing is the MyFitnessPal by Under Armour just recently had a data breach, or it was announced that they had a data breach. It was hacked. So far, it's like 150 million accounts. There might be more because, obviously, whenever these things occur, there's usually always more. And then the second bit of news we're going to be talking about today is the Linux Deep Learning. The Linux Foundation Deep Learning is officially been, I guess, released in a lot of ways. And so this will get into a lot of things that we normally talk about. And it's something that's all related, which is kind of weird. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the very first bit of news. And it's not good news, okay? I don't ever, like in any of these type of incidents, I'm not ever happy that, companies, and especially people's accounts and information gets compromised. However, as more and more of us are on the internet and these type of things occur, it's good for us to be aware of it and also, kind of like, think of ways that we could help lessen the impact that this has. And so if you're not familiar with MyFitnessPal, it is basically a fitness app that really tracks your calories, your health and fitness. And this is actually a company that was purchased by Under Armour in 2005, or maybe it's 2015. But anyway, Under Armour now owns this. And so it does a lot of things that, people normally use nowadays, okay? And so it's not just MyFitnessPal, and I'll go into all the other companies that are doing the same things. And people are, I would say, more reliant on a lot of these services for their health consciousness. Okay, so before I go further into that, let me actually go into the actual data breach itself. I guess that was the first most important thing. And if you go to the MyFitnessPal website, you'll notice there is a notice of data breach. And here they announced it on March 29, 2018. And so basically, obviously, the company's account was actually compromised. And within this, what was actually breached, okay? What was actually breached was actually things such as usernames, emails, and hash passwords. At least the passwords are hashed, and they weren't clear text or anything, so that's a good thing. However, no financial information, social security numbers, or anything like that was actually found in there, which is great. But I do want to talk about how your email, I think more than anything, is probably all that hackers or people who want this information really need, because just with somebody's email, and especially if it's their real email account, it's extremely powerful, and I will get into that a little bit later. And so after this occurred, this actually caused the stock of the company Under Armour to go down 4%. And if we remember all the data breaches that's going on throughout the years, and it's been occurring more and more, the biggest which was the Yahoo one, which had like 3 billion accounts that was actually compromised, yep, in 2013. This is not anything new, okay? But what is like kind of concerning is the fact that, whenever these things happen, we really get desensitized to it. And it seems like it gets bigger and bigger, and a lot of times these are just the ones that are reported, and it's not just like, for-profit companies neither. Government institutions get hacked all the time. And so that's something that you really don't have any control over, okay? And so, hey, good morning, Carlos. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you. And so, yeah, so now we know this has happened, and this is a reoccurring theme. And a lot of the same things happen whenever this, or whenever these type of incidents come to light. The first thing is that people are angry, of course. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is that obviously the companies or government organizations, their first step is to actually uh, do whatever promotions and marketing that they can to actually not only inform people but also just like calm things down. Okay, that's usually how it goes. And then in the end comes the inevitable. People are, pretty much saying we're going to sue them or we're no longer going to use the services, and there's a lot of distrust. But then, months later, people forget about it. Okay, I mean, does anybody even talk about the data breach that happened with Equifax? Which I think was one of the most serious ones because that's people's credit information. Nobody really even talks about that anymore. Or what about the hacks that happened that actually, health records were compromised, specifically in the UK, where people, we couldn't access health records. There are a lot of serious things that are happening, but normally it always follows the same exact pattern. People are angry at first. They fix the problem, or the best that possible, I guess, at that point, or they patch the problem, right? And then people forget about it. Okay, and then a lot of people who are affected by this, they don't really get any recourse, whether it's from the companies or governments that actually get hacked. And so that's really where we're at, which now I'm going back to this whole fitness application type stuff. Okay, so I myself, I don't really use these fitness trackers, but I can see how they are important for people who actually need this. Because obviously it's not only, MyFitnessPal that's available. If you look at stuff like Google Fit, Apple Health, Samsung Health, there's so many others, okay? And this all is all related because even my second subject, this is all related, and this is absolutely nothing new where, a lot of times in our modern world, we have a lot of conveniences, okay? But in order for you to have these conveniences, there's going to have to be compromises. And the main compromise that you have is your actual personal data and your privacy. Okay, and so a lot of people look at these things as like ways to, make their lives better, make their lives convenient. And I absolutely agree that it does make our lives convenient because if you look at the amount of technology that we have today, the things that we can do, like for our online banking, that's so convenient. That saves so much time. And so I could easily see why a lot of people would use these fitness trackers, and they're giving a lot of personal information, not only their actual health, which is really important data, and I'll get into why that's important, but also the fact that it has other things like your GPS location, your age, and your email address, and some of them obviously have other personal information as well, your actual physical address, so it can monitor where you're at and stuff. Okay, so that's the other side, so there is positives, but the negatives comes into the fact that with things like this, they know so much about you and how this health information can be used later. And companies like Apple is already starting to do this, is that they share this data with insurance companies. Okay, now I did see like a program a while back that was talking about 50 years in the future, and then in the future, your actual things in your home, like your toilet, will be able to analyze your urine and actually be able to notify the health companies. And so if you are unhealthy, they can actually increase your premium rates. And so I could easily see that these health monitors could eventually be used for the same things. Okay, it's not there yet, but that's kind of where I see it going. In one sense, you're like, all right, you're keeping track of your health, but once this data is shared with other types of institutions and entities, then it could be used in different ways. I could easily see insurance companies getting on this first, and also governments as well. Okay, so there's definitely a negative side to that as well. And some people might say it's not really a negative, okay, but that's kind of what I see, that it could be used in that way, okay? And so, if you are going to be using these type of health apps, with instances like this, where it's really, I don't know if it's really worth it, but it's really up to you. Just be cognizant that there is always a chance that things could be compromised, and just be aware of the type of data and how much data you're actually giving to these companies, these government institutions, whatever. They all work pretty much the same underneath, but you're giving a lot of information. And just understand that whenever these things do occur, that they're not really liable to a certain point for any damage that occurs, because that is something that you agree to whenever you sign to use these apps. Okay, now going back to the compromises of data, in my opinion, the email address alone is extremely powerful. Now, for most people who are concerned about security, they're obviously going to be using a fake email, right? But if you're using these apps right here to monitor your health, most people are going to use their real email address. And with your email address alone, there is so much you can do. I mean, obviously, if you just do Google search, you might be able to find out who that person is. But another thing that you could do is, if you were marketing, right? Let me give you an example. You could take somebody's email address, put it into Facebook ads, and you could create a custom audience from that. And what it will do is it'll find anybody related to you on Facebook, you know, and if your email is attached to a Facebook address, it'll find that as well. And from there, you could create a lookalike audience. So now you could target not only people related to you on your email address, but also potentially millions of other people who are similar to you. Okay, and that's just off your email address, and that's just off of one platform on Facebook ads. There's so many things that you can do. Okay, and so in my opinion, you know, your personal information is definitely important. Things such as your address, your social security, if you're in the US, obviously your credit card, all those things are important. But just understand that just your email address alone is enough for a lot of people who actually want to use it in ways that you probably won't agree with. Okay, and so hey, good morning, Robert. Good morning. Thank you for joining. Robert is saying I'm not a huge fan of smartwatch. Hey, good morning, Drop Near Guard. Thanks for joining. Yeah, I'm not neither, Robert, and at least right now, okay, because I don't really see a way that this is going to stop, obviously, because technology progresses forward, you know, because even if you think about 20 years ago, if you told somebody that you were doing your banking, you know, online, you know, when the internet just started, people would think you're crazy, you know, instead of going to a physical bank and, you know, talking to a banker. Just think of how far we've come in just the past 20 years. Okay, and so in the future, things like this, unfortunately, it'll be absolutely normal. You know, it'll be normal for you to have your health monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You might have, you know, these nano machines inside your body that is sharing information with other people and entities besides yourself. Hey, good morning, Rose. Thank you so much for joining. And, you know, like, if you think about things like prosthetics, right? You know, like, for example, if you have a heart condition, and this has been around for a long time, you know, whenever you have a artificial heart or valve inside your body, the health system has been able to do this. They could actually monitor your heart rate, and they could change the programming inside this artificial heart without ever opening you up. You know what I mean? So this type of technology has been available before. It's just now that since we're sharing so much of it now, I don't know, I'm not really sure the next level of this type of data. I mean, I mentioned the whole insurance companies, but wow, there's so many things that they could do with this. I mean, just the example I gave you with Facebook ads. You know, when I do Facebook ads, all I need is your email address. I mean, and anybody who does advertising, digital marketing, they know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, and so you really don't need a lot of stuff. Just your email address alone is all you need. Okay, and so imagine if somebody like these people, these organizations who really want to, you know, use your sensitive information in a bad way. I mean, when they hack into these accounts, obviously they get way more than your email address, and so they could tie a lot of things together to find out who you are, you know. And obviously there's so many other things they could do with that. So Robert is saying, my employer pays you money rewards for monitoring your health. Personally, I feel that they're tracking healthcare risks in their employees and could be used in a negative way. And Rose is saying Gattaca is almost here. Well, yes, Robert, I know exactly what you're talking about, and a lot of companies are doing this, and this is my opinion, okay? And they do it for two main ways, okay? Just and if you own a business, I think you would understand this as well. It would, you know, but just look at it this way: whenever you are an employee, right? If you're self-employed or you're a business owner, I think for this one, you probably have a better understanding of it because you're actually paying for it, okay? So health insurance, normally in most companies, especially here in the United States, you get some type of health insurance, okay? And health insurance is expensive. If you're ever self-employed and you try to pay for your own insurance, it's really expensive, especially if you have a family, okay? And so a lot of times these companies, obviously they get better rates because they are companies and they are businesses, okay? Versus you having to pay it as an individual. And a lot of people, I don't think they really think about that, okay? Health insurance is extremely expensive. And so the reason why a lot of companies are doing these checkups, right, is just what I kind of mentioned earlier about all these health information being shared with insurance companies. Because the healthier you are, right, that means, you know, the longer you'll be able to, the healthier you are, the less risk that you are to the insurance companies. Okay, that's first and foremost. So that means your cost is going to be lower because you're less likely to, you know, get sick or die, you know, okay? So the second thing is, if you are healthier, obviously, if you own a business, if you're self-employed, for most people, if you own a business, you want people to be healthy. Because if they're healthy, obviously, they could work, okay? They could be more productive. And if you are self-employed, that's normally dependent mainly on you. So if you're sick and you can't work, you make no money. Okay, so there is definitely, it's not just like the dark side. They just want to take advantage of it. There's really practical reasons for them doing that. Now, in terms of like the insurance companies, especially here in the United States, and I know it's in other parts of countries, in terms of like how much they are, you know, they're like charging you. Yeah, that's a whole nother area. You know, I don't agree with everything, especially when it comes to health. You know, if you go to other countries where like a lot of the health is free, I would say, or it's less expensive, then you could kind of see where, you know, they could take advantage of that as well. And so obviously there's going to be a negative side to it as well. But just from a practical sense, you know, if you do own your own business or you're self-employed and you have to get your own insurance, and especially if you have to purchase insurance for your employees, it's extremely expensive. Okay, and so so Rob said, so it's not commonly known, but heart stents, low cholesterol medication, diabetes medication have severe side effects, but the pharmaceutical industry pushes it. Yeah, Robert, that's a whole nother area, you know, and you know, that's a lot of people. I mean, and I get it, you know, a lot of people take a very ethical you know, stance on it, how it's wrong and right, you know, and there's, you know, I'm not a doctor, you know, I can't tell people like what's good and what's not good for them, but I will agree with you that a lot of times these medications or these programs that they provide to you, they're not always the best thing for you, you know, and it really depends on you as an individual. I myself, I really take pretty much no medication at all, okay? About the only thing I take is like maybe tea, you know, and if it gets really bad, I might take an allergy medication, but I really don't do any of that. But that's me, you know, I try to eat healthy, I try to get a lot of sleep, and I try to exercise regularly. And so if you could do those things, you know, I think it helps, you know, and then obviously people use these apps to help them monitor that, okay? And so it's really difficult for me to, you know, just go black and white on this, okay? But I just think that whenever people do use these fitness applications, just understand that there's a lot of stuff being collected. And I think Apple already recently, with Apple Health, they could actually share some of this data with health insurance companies, obviously at this point with your consent. But later on, I don't think they're going to need your consent. You know, once you agree to use the app, they'll be able to share this with insurance companies and government institutions as well. That's my personal opinion. And so, yeah, so just anybody who uses these fitness apps, just, you know, just be aware that these applications are collecting a lot of data, a lot of personal data. I mean, just think about the fact that if you go running with this fitness app with the GPS tracking on, they know exactly where you're at. And if you do this every single day, they could monitor you, you know, they could collect a lot of data. And like I said, you know, I do marketing. And so if I was a marketer and I knew exactly where you were running every day, well, I could advertise to you depending on where you're at. Like say, for example, every single day you are running, you're running by a Starbucks, right? And I know that every day you run by there at around 9 a.m. I could tell that from the fitness app because I collect that data. So what I can do is I could do a ad that and whenever you do ads, there's so many things that you could do in the back end. Okay, you could schedule it, you could do such things such as retargeting, remarketing. Okay, but from that data alone, every day I could send a pop-up ad on your fitness app telling you, hey, you get a discount on this cup of Starbucks coffee at exactly 9 a.m. You know what I mean? And so I know that's creepy, but that's how data can be used. And I'm just showing you one easy example. You know, all the other things that could be done with it, I don't know, it's mind-boggling. And obviously, a lot of it uses artificial intelligence. And so, which actually gets into the second thing that I'm going to talk about, okay, which is Linux deep learning. But before that, let me see. Rose is saying health insurance will use the DNA to determine if you will be covered or to what age these tests. Yep, absolutely, Rose. I agree with you 1,000%. And Rose, I'm glad you mentioned that movie Gattaca. If you are not familiar with that movie Gattaca, man, it's one of the best movies that I've seen in a long time. I love that movie. And that movie had Uma Thurman and Ethan Hawke. And I think it came out in the 90s. I can't remember. But that predicted a future not too far away. And we're actually there, pretty close to it right now, where people's standings in society, it's based upon their DNA. You know, and honestly, that's kind of where we're heading. So in the future, if you are not healthy, then you might not get all the benefits of citizens who are healthier. Okay, and so Gattaca dealt with that. Gattaca also, the movie actually even talked about DNA discrimination as well. Okay, and so I agree with you 1,000%, Rose. I agree with you. I think that's where it's going in the future. And so, like I said, all of this data that's being collected, it will be used in a lot of ways to determine, you know, how much it costs for you to live your life. Okay, and I'm just going back to what I talked about with Robert, you know, about companies, you know, checking you up and making sure that you're healthy. Well, just for people who are unhealthy, it's just going to cost them more money. That's already the case right now. If you are an unhealthy person, it costs you more to live because obviously you have to have more medication. You actually have to go to more hospital visits. Your insurance is higher. And so, yeah, it's all related. But that's a perfect example of Gattaca. Yeah. Robert said Big Farm would love to take advantage of your health profiles. Well, Robert, these health apps, I'm pretty sure, 1,000% positive they will actually, this information will be shared with the big pharmaceuticals in the future if they are not already being shared right now. I'm pretty sure that they're being shared. Okay, so if you think about Apple's health monitor and app, they, like I said, they could already share this with health insurance. And so obviously the health insurance are tied with the pharmaceutical companies as well. And so I'm pretty sure it's already happening. Okay, and so hey Samuel, good morning. Thanks for joining. Robert saying yes, it's better to eat right, exercise and sleep, but most people would rather pop a pill because the doctor said it's safe or it's the easiest way to do things. You cannot take shortcuts in life. Absolutely, Robert. It's a lot easier for people to take shortcuts. And the unfortunate thing is that's what people want. I don't think a lot of people want to take the long, hard road of doing this type of work on themselves every single day. And this is nothing new. This has been around ever since humans were able to create things that were convenient. Humans don't want things that are hard. Okay, our minds are built to keep us in comfort and keep us away from pain. And so that's really not going to change. Okay, I mean, it's sad to say, but it's true. Okay, the human mind craves comfort. Okay, it does not like discomfort and it doesn't like pain. And so the more things that could make it more easier and more comfortable for us, the more that our brain actually wants that. And so I think in my opinion, unless you have really bad health conditions, it's really easy. Just what you said, Robert. Eat right, exercise and sleep, drink plenty of water, and your body is an amazing thing. Okay, but anyway, not to get off on a tangent, but yeah. So if you are using any of these fitness apps, just kind of be wary of what's going on. Okay, and so Yeah, or use a fake email address. I don't know. Or turn off your GPS. I don't know. Just anyway, be wary of that. So that gets into the second thing of news. Since we talk a lot about artificial intelligence, it is the Linux deep learning foundation. Okay, and so Linux just announced this a few days ago. If you go to the Linux Foundation, this is the Linux deep learning project. And the first one that they have is the Acumos AI project. And this is something that we have talked about before, and that is open AI, artificial intelligence. Okay, and it's not just the Linux Foundation. If you look at other things such as open AI, which is heavily funded by Elon Musk, okay, and Peter Thiel, and also DeepMind as well. And so this is something that we're going to continue to talk about because it's integral to our lives now. And obviously all these health fitness apps, okay, they use a ton of artificial intelligence. And so I think this is important, obviously, because if we can have open artificial intelligence, then at least we have some things that are still within the open source community. Okay, but one thing I do want to mention, and I have mentioned this before, is the fact that the Linux Foundation isn't purely Linux, and they even talk about that right here. Okay, how the Linux Foundation is not just Linux. I think more and more the Linux Foundation is an organization that actually focuses on open source, the open source nature of Linux and everything that surrounds that. Okay, and you know, and the one thing that I think a lot of people who are in the Linux and open source community, and I don't want to say this in a negative way, but I think sometimes we have like a very skewed view of what we think Linux and the open source community actually is. A lot of times we think that Linux or open source communities exist because of individuals. Okay, we are the ones supporting this community, and to a large extent that's true. But to be honest with you, most of it's being supported and run by big companies. Okay, I mean, just look at any open source project. The majority, especially if they actually have a business behind it, most of it's not going to be funded by individual users like me and you. They're funded by companies. These are the board members of the Linux Foundation. Facebook, AT&T, Qualcomm, Cisco, Intel, VMware. Let me see. What's another one? Oracle is on here. Samsung, IBM, Microsoft. Okay, there's Oracle right there. NEC, you know, and then if you look at, you know, the Linux Foundation members, you know, these are not small companies. Okay, and so the reason I want to point this out is a few things. Okay, and this is just the reality of it. Whenever we have a lot of these open source projects, okay, they need a lot of money. They need funding. Okay, and the majority of that funding is going to be coming from these multi-billion-dollar companies or big governments. Okay, that's the reality. Okay, you need money in order to fund this. Okay, so in one sense, I love the fact that the Linux Foundation is doing this so that they could continue funding these open source projects so that people like you and me could benefit from this. Okay, because at least at this point it's still open source, so we still have access to the code. We're still able to bring it into the individual communities and the smaller communities and to actually keep these things going. Okay, so that's the good thing. You know, you do really need money. Okay, you need some type of financing to keep a lot of these open source projects going. But the bad thing is, or I don't know if it's a bad thing, but it could definitely be a bad thing. Whenever you have companies this large, okay, or governments this large, then obviously there's going to be influence there. Okay, so that is definitely the reality of it. And so even in an open AI project or all this artificial intelligence, this would definitely be awesome for people who really want to dig into this, who want to develop their own artificial intelligence project. Just remember that a lot of the funding, a lot of the influence behind it is much larger companies. And I'm not saying that they're bad, because, you know, I'm a big proponent of entrepreneurship and these businesses that do a lot of great things for the world. I mean, a lot of our services that we have, everything that we have is pretty much provided by businesses and governments. Okay, but at the same time, they also have a vested interest as well. Okay, and so you know, whenever these artificial intelligence, all these new things that come out of it, then in one case, it'll be great. But in another case, there's also other motivations behind it as well. Okay, and so lots of other influences. So I'm really I'm excited to see where this goes, and I did talk about this before about open artificial intelligence. It'll be exciting, and so at least people could develop and tinker with it and actually produce their own different AI projects, you know. And the other one that I'm interested in is also open AI, and you know, just the fact that Elon Musk, you know, is on here. It's pretty cool, but he also has a vested interest as well with all his many businesses and stuff so far. So I'm really interested to see how far the Linux Foundation goes with this. Okay, and so let me see. And so Rose says Google does the same thing as Facebook. Data collection from both of these firms for many years. Let me see. Robert says Facebook claims they're doing things legally with all the data to collect. Robert and Rose, you already know I do work on Facebook ads and Google AdWords on the back end. And so, and all of these companies, they do the same thing. Microsoft, Apple, it doesn't matter. They all do the same thing, and because they have to, okay? Because if you do not have data, then your business is not going to survive. You need business. I mean, you need data, okay? And so, whenever they say they're doing things legally, they are, for the most part, okay? Because I mean, there's a lots of governments around the world. There's many different policies, and so it's a very complex area. But as I just mentioned a little bit earlier, my example of just with your email address, how they could potentially target millions of people when it comes to advertising. There's so many things that could be done, you know, and it goes way beyond the legalities of things because it's so complex. There's no way that you could have just a standard law that works for every single country and every single instance, okay? Just and we already know this, but just realize that whatever data that you share willingly or in some cases unwillingly, it can't be controlled, okay? That's just the bottom line. You cannot control what's being done with your data, okay? Just as the same thing if, you know, if you're a citizen of a government, they already have a lot of your personal data and you have no control over that. You know, about the only thing that you can control is the data that you have, that you put out there, okay? So that's kind of where I think that we still have the control. You still have the control over the type of data that you put out there. But some things such as your, at least in the US, such as your social security, your credit card, your credit information, all that stuff, you really don't have any control over that. At least if you want to be the citizen of this particular country, okay? And so, so Rose is saying, don't buy products like Google Home, Amazon Echo, and Apple One. Yeah, if you are concerned about your privacy, I would agree with Rose. You know, just you know, don't buy or use products that you feel that violates your privacy or takes too much of your data. And I'll always say this. You know, I really feel like the privacy is your responsibility. That's my personal opinion. You are responsible because you are the one that's putting out this personal data, that's using these products and services, okay? I would say 90% of it is under your control. The other 10%, like I said, governments, you know, you need a phone, then you're probably gonna have to provide personal information. If you open up a bank account, you're gonna need personal information. So I would say the majority of things, it is under your control, okay? Hey Gaza, thank you for joining. Thank you so much. And let me see. So Carlos is saying Mycroft AI looks so nice. Oh, looks nice also as a personal assistant. What's that? I've never heard of that. Mycroft AI. Let's see. Let's see, Carlos. And now we're just going to go ahead and get to the Q&A section. So y'all could ask whatever questions that you want. Cool. That's really cool. That's cool, Carlos. So here's another thing. This is a open source personal assistant. And so this is the great thing about these projects like, you know, like this deep learning and open AI and all this other stuff is because even though a lot of it is funded by very big companies, the fact that once again this source code is available to the community at large, we can take it and do a lot of different things with it. And so that's still an awesome thing. You know, I'm really happy that we are still able to do that. And so, you know, there's good and bads to it. So, but I think there's more good to it, obviously, because you're able to do all this stuff. This is really cool. Thanks, Carlos. So this, you could hook this up with your Raspberry device or any other device. That's really cool. There's your smart refrigerator. And so, yeah, this is so interesting. You know, like the more and more artificial intelligence grows, and You know, besides the whole fact that it could end up being Terminators, it's just amazing to me, all the things that AI can do. It really is, because I can't even fathom the amount of work that goes on to develop this. You know, how does it grow like this? You know, and since a lot of the AI, it grows exponentially, I think it's way beyond Moore's law. Maybe even like the next 5 years. I mean, we'll be on a whole nother level on that. And so Gaza saying it may be legal, but it's a question of ethics and morality. Yep, absolutely, Gaza. It is a question of ethics and morality, and that's kind of an area where I think you as an individual, you have to make that choice, because it's, you know, it's not impossible, but a lot of people try to change bigger things. You know, you try to change how companies and governments operate, but that's, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's easier for you to control what you as an individual do first, okay, than to try to change all these other larger entities and all these other countries around the world. It's very complex, but I agree with you. It is a ethics and morality thing. That's where the gray area comes in, okay, and that's where people get very, you know, they get very passionate about that, okay. Gaza saying the data will and is used to exploit you now and in the future. Well, Gaza, I really feel it could be used just with anything. It could be used in both a good and bad way. Okay, and I think Carlos brought this up on our last one. I don't know if it's Carlos, or it might have been you or Robert, but you know, this data that's being collected, it could be used in a good way. You know, if you have a health condition, let's say like you had cancer, right? You had cancer, or you had Alzheimer's, and then this data through AI is used to collect it, and then it's used to create a cure, or to lessen the pain that you get from these diseases, or to prevent these diseases in the future, then that's a great thing. That's great for humanity. And a lot of these technologies that have been developed, they have allowed humans to live a lot longer. Okay, so that's the positive side of the data collection and artificial intelligence, because if you don't have data, then you really don't know what to do, you know. I mean, you can only guess. Okay, so all of this is it's all tied together. Okay, but it goes back to what you said earlier. It's really the ethics and morality part of it that's really the controversial area, you know, because everybody has different viewpoints there. So Robert said data mining is profitable industry. Yep, data is the most valuable the most valuable thing everywhere. It simply is. It's like water. You know, that's how important data is. Okay, and it's never going to stop. And you know, data collection has been there since way before technology. You know, and I have mentioned this before, but our brains, we're data collection machines. Okay, so imagine if you had Alzheimer's, right? You no longer have your memory. You lost all that data. It's really difficult, right, to be a human being if you don't remember things. Okay, so that's why all this data is being collected. Just think of it that way. You as a human, you're collecting data all the time. You use it to make decisions. And so in the same way that all this data is being collected, used with AI, is used to make decisions. Okay, and hopefully that it makes good decisions for the most part. Guys are saying time to build a Faraday cage. Yeah. Oh, hey Lance, good morning. Thank you for joining. Carlos saying you could build recipes to it on Minecraft. Yeah, that is so cool. I thought you said Minecraft. Let me see. Minecraft can be installed on desktop as well. Robert, hi Lance. Okay, so we have about 20 minutes left, and so I'm gonna kind of go random, okay, since I did talk about these two subjects already. And sometimes, you know, whenever we have these, if you are brand new to my live videos, I normally have 2 to 3 subjects that I talk about, okay? And then what I've been doing now is having a Q&A, but most of the times we have discussions in other areas as well. And so if you are new to that, just understand that I do have a topic or format that I have for every live show, but the majority of times, a lot of it goes off based upon the discussions that we have. And for people who are brand new to my channel, a lot of the people that are on my channel, most of them obviously they're geeks. Okay, they're geeks and nerds, and so we really geek out over technology and stuff. And so that's where most of the conversation is. And so Gaza is saying, have you seen the film called The Circle? It's about a data collection. No, I have not seen it, Gaza, but I heard some mixed things about it. If you have not heard of The Circle, it is a movie with Tom Hanks, and it's basically in this world that is really not too much different from our own, where there's this one company. It's basically Google and Facebook combined that collects data on everything that you do in your life, and that's pretty much the same thing that's happening now. And so, and also if you watch a show like Black Mirror, then you'll understand what I'm talking about there as well. And Gaza, yeah, that's exactly where actually we are already there. I mean, pretty much. I mean, if you think about it, like for example, if you have a child, right, in the modern age, okay, a baby, their whole life is going to be filmed. It's going to be recorded before the baby is even able to speak, because a lot of people will post videos of their baby on social media, on websites, on YouTube. And so the baby's privacy, their whole life is already being documented before they're even aware. Okay, so in the future, a lot of sci-fi has already alluded to this, but your whole life will be recorded from the time you're born, even before you're born, until the time of your death. Okay, and so movies like The Circle and other sci-fi movies and shows, and we're in it right now. I mean, if you think about how many things that you document online, and how much of your personal life is being shared. Sometimes, I think most of the time it is willingly, but sometimes unwillingly. You could track your whole life, through the internet. Okay. Robert says, proud to be nerds and geeks rule down with jocks. Yeah, that makes me think of that movie, Animal House. Nerds. If you've ever seen that movie, I think it's Animal House. Yeah. Lance is saying, I've been watching Philip K. Dick's Electric Dreams on Prime. Some of the stories have been really well done. Wow, I don't have Amazon Prime, Lance, but Philip K. Dick, if you're not familiar, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lance, is the author of Total Recall, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Or, yeah, Philip K. Or was it Blade Runner? I cannot remember. Please correct me. Maybe it is Blade Runner. Yeah, Philip K. Dick. Robert saying Altered Carbon is another good one. Well, Robert, on my other channel, my Go Movies channel, I did do a review on Altered Carbon, and to me it was good at the beginning, but the second half of it wasn't that great. Guys are saying, Lance, Electric Dreams for the most part is great. I'm gonna have to check out that show. Let me see. Philip K. Dick, was he the one who did Total Recall, or did he actually do Blade Runner? Let me see, because I can't remember. I think he did do Total Recall. Do Androids Dream? Yeah, Blade Runner. And did he also do Total Recall? Let me see if he did that. Or was that somebody else? Look, yeah, maybe that was some other guy. I thought it was the same author. Wait. Oh, okay, yeah, he did do it. Okay, great. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, great author. I've seen a lot of his adaptations of movies. And so, speaking of movies, if you have not seen Ready Player One, speaking of geeks and nerds, I just saw that, and I did do a review on it on my other channel, my Go Movies channel. You should go check that out. I mean, if you are a geek and a nerd, you love nostalgia, you love the 80s, the 70s, the 90s, man, you will really enjoy Ready Player One. Ready Player One is a movie directed by Steven Spielberg. It's also based upon a very popular book back in 2011, and wow, it was much better than I thought. Okay, so if you haven't seen it, or you're not familiar with it, here's the book. It's written by Ernest Cline, but the movie itself, it actually has this whole world, this virtual world. It's called the Oasis. Okay, and so the main character in the movie, his name is Wade Watts, and in the whole virtual world, he is this character called Percival. And there's other characters there as well. There's Artemis, there's H, there's Daito and Sho, and then there's so many different characters from other video games. You see Street Fighter characters, Atari characters. You also see a lot of movie characters, Freddy, Jason, like cameos. Really great stuff. The Iron Giant. You see some anime characters and stuff in there. man, this movie is pretty sweet. So if you haven't seen it, I recommend you go check it out. And I do recommend that you check it out in like the biggest screen possible. Okay, so Gaz is saying a rhetorical question: what's the difference between a geek and nerd? Okay, so this is my interpretation. Okay, and y'all might correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, but for me, a nerd, okay, in my opinion, okay, a nerd is somebody who is, I would say, academically, they're really smart. Okay, a nerd is the person who has a pen and I'm just giving you some generalizations. Okay, a pen and glasses, and they're just really academically smart. Okay, whereas a geek, I don't think a lot of geeks are the smartest people when it comes to academic education, because usually the nerds, they're the ones who have the highest grades. They have a 4.0, blah 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 blah. But a geek, they're not that person, even though they like the same things. Okay, and so I think a geek is more like a nerd light. That's my opinion. Okay, because there's a lot of people now that identify with geek culture. Okay, and with geeks, you know, you could geek out about a lot of stuff. Okay, and so that's my personal opinion. Like I consider myself a geek because I do enjoy a lot of these same things that a lot of nerds like as well. Okay, and so, you know, and a lot of geeks like as well. You know, we love sci-fi, we love technology, we love movies. You know, we like the same things. Okay, but I think a nerd, they're a lot more. Let me say, they're like a more of a uber geek. Let's just put it that way. That's just my opinion. Okay, so that's my interpretation. So I think a lot more people are geeks than there are nerds. Okay, and I think the whole term nerd, it's really not as popular nowadays. I think a lot more people like to use the term geek, and like they just put a whole bunch of people in there. Okay, and let me see. So Carlos is saying, I read the book, waiting to see the movie. Yeah, Carlos. The thing with Ready Player One is that if you did read the book, this isn't exactly like the book. Okay, because the book, the author is heavily influenced by the 80s. Okay, and so if you read the book, there's a lot of sections that really talk about things such as Rush, the band Rush, right? Heavily 80s, right? And also some of the storylines that happen in the book, they don't happen in the movie. And I'm specifically talking about one part of the movie. It's about a movie, okay? You see what I mean. I don't want to spoil it for you, but this is a fun movie. If you do decide to go watch it, just really like turn your brain off, because it's not really a deep movie. I'm just be honest with you. It's not about the characters. It's not about the story. It's about being an uber geek. It's about loving those time periods that I talked about, you know. And there'll be so many moments where you're like, wow, that's that. You know, there's Jurassic Park in there. There's King Kong. There's Back to the Future. There's Akira. I mean, there's so many moments. I just geeked out. I mean, I really enjoyed it. Okay, but once again, it's not a very deep movie. I mean, it's probably a movie that I wouldn't go back to too many times. Okay, let's just say it that way. Rose, nerd is derogatory tone, but geek seems less so. Yeah, Rose. Yeah, exactly. You know, I think the whole term nerd, it's not really used as much anymore in the modern age. I think just people use geek, and I guess now it's like normal geek, and then there's uber geek, and maybe geek like, I guess, you know. But the great thing is, you know, if you are a geek, which I think a lot more people are identifying as a geek nowadays, a lot of times we have similar things that we like. Okay, and so hey, good morning, Louis Angel. I'm from New Zealand. Great, thank you for joining. And so we have about 10 minutes left. So if there's anything else that y'all want to talk about here, because I love these discussions that we have where it's just geeking out about whatever. And let me see. I did see. Oh, okay. So Gaza is saying, is anyone going to local Comic-Con this year? Just bought my tickets. No, Gaza, but I have been to a Comic-Con myself. It was a much smaller Comic-Con. I think, Gaza, you're from the UK. So where are the Comic-Cons? Is it like a smaller one, or I don't know. Yeah, if you love comic books, you know, you should definitely check out a Comic-Con. But I will say this, okay? This is my personal opinion, okay? A lot of the Comic-Cons, Unless you go to the really, really big one, the local ones, I would say it's also there to promote the artists and the comic books as well. Okay, and so a lot of times if you go to these Comic Cons, you'll be able to buy a lot of merchandise related to these different comics and properties. And also at the same time, if you go to much bigger Comic Con, and this is for people who've never been there, if you go to the much bigger Comic Cons, you'll be able to get autographs or meet some of these not only comic book artists but big celebrities. So like for example, the last Comic Con that I went to, Stan Lee was there, and the line just was so long just to get an autograph or just to meet him. You know, like you probably have to wait for hours. And so let me see. Okay, so Lance is saying, are you interested in doing any Raspberry Pi projects? They came out with an updated Raspberry Pi 3. I don't know, Lance. I mean, I've always been interested in it, but it's like it just takes a lot of time, you know, and I'm not sure if that's something that I would want to invest in at this point, you know, because my brother, he does that, you know. My younger brother, he does programming, and so he has built his own Arduino board as well. So you know, he's done it before. I would love to learn it. It just takes time. So Robert Lopez, happy Easter, God bless. Thanks, Robert. A huge fan of Big Bang Theory. You know, Robert, I've never really watched that show, to be honest with you. I tend not to watch a lot of TV. You know, most of what I watch is streaming, like Netflix. So, guys saying, yeah, it's smallish, Manchester, UK, but it's great. Last year, there were some Star Wars actors. Oh, that's really cool. Rose is saying, Comic-Con is kind of commercial now. Kind of not interested. Stan Lee is bankrupt, so you will see more of him at Comic-Con now. Oh, that's sad, Rose. But yeah, Rose, I would agree with you, Rose. There is a lot of commercial elements. Like that's why I was saying it's primarily there to promote the comics and to sell merchandise. Okay, so but I'm thinking if you've never been to Comic-Con, maybe go there to experience it, because there are a lot of fans there. Okay, but just with anything, you know, just understand that there is also a business element to it as well. So Stan Lee is bankrupt. Oh, that's kind of sad. I didn't know that. Okay, and so I think that's it for this episode, y'all. I think it's almost an hour, and you know, once again, you know, I just really want to thank everybody who's here. So Robert saying, I would like to thank a 3D printer. Yes. So let me go ahead and thank everybody who's here first. So first and foremost, I do want to thank Carlos Henrique. Thank you, Carlos, for joining. Robert Lopez, thanks for joining. Jokiep Narp, I think this is the first time you're here. Thanks for joining. Rose, as always. Samuel S, thank you for joining. Let's see, Gaza Imp, thank you, Gaza. And Lance, of course. And yes, I think that is everybody. And Lewis Angel 237, thank you so much for joining. And so yeah, so as always, you know, if you are new to my channel, I do have live episodes weekly, pretty much every Saturday at 9 a.m. US time, okay, US Central Time. Okay, so for everybody who is watching this right now, I do want to thank all of you and for joining us in our Geek discussion, because time is our most valuable asset. And for anybody else who watches this later, thank you so much. And so if you had any thoughts on anything that we talked about today, whether it is the whole MyFitnessPal being compromised and hacked, or about the Linux Foundation Deep Learning Artificial Intelligence, be sure to leave that in the comments area below. So as always, if you did get value out of these videos, be sure to subscribe. And if you did want to support my channel further, you can do that at patreon.com/geekoutdoors.